It's not always about frame data or hitboxes. These are the stories behind the faces on the character select screen and why we keep coming back to them. These are the Fighter Files. Before we delve into Mileena's biography, it's important to point out that this is actually multiple biographies. Unlike Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat has at least 3 distinct timelines that we follow throughout the mainline series. We have the original timeline, which encompasses the arcade and PS2 eras, the reboot timeline, made up of MK9, MKX, and MK11, and finally, our current timeline featured in MK1. There will be clear divides between each version of Mileena, but I will also be color-coding the border based on which timeline we're covering. If the border of this video is purple, we're talking about the original Mileena. A red border means reboot Mileena. And finally, I'll be using a gold border when we get to MK1 Mileena. I'll be using this color coordination strategy with all Mortal Kombat characters covered in this show. With that timey-wimey mumbo-jumbo out of the way, let's tear into it. When the Elder Gods formed the realms, none would ever compare to the beauty of their original creation. Edenia, first of all creations, was a lush paradise, home of an angelic people who found beauty in all things. Ruled by the compassionate King Jared and Queen Sindel, the Edenians dedicated their lives to art and philosophy. It is rumored that the early people of Earthrealm, upon seeing the glorious Edenians, mistook them for gods, with Edenia itself becoming the inspiration for the biblical Garden of Eden. So beloved was Edenia that even the Elder Gods, often uncaring of their creations, provided the realm with Argus, the most powerful of the lesser gods, as its protector. Argus, in turn, would build glorious monuments to honor Jared and Sindel. In time, he would even marry Delia, a mortal Edenian woman. Edenia, a place so glorious as to make the gods weep, would still be as humble as to aid all around them. Their beauty, both internal and external, made Edenia the guiding star of creation itself. It was that beauty which made Edenia the first target of SHAO Kahn. Kahn, a fallen lesser god that had murdered the king of Outworld, became obsessed with controlling this immaculate realm. The Elder Gods attempted to limit Shao Kahn by enacting the rules of Mortal Kombat. Every 50 years, a tournament would be held between Edenia and Outworld. Only by winning 10 tournaments in a row would Outworld be able to shatter the divide between the two realms. The Elder Gods believed that Shao Kahn would grow impatient before he could obtain so many victories, or that Edenia would be able to win at least one tournament to hold his forces at bay. They were wrong on both counts. Over 9,000 years ago, Kahn claimed his 10th consecutive Mortal Kombat victory over Edenia. With no limits, his armies tore Edenia asunder. The Edenians were artists, doctors, philosophers. They had never faced such cruelty before. Soon, the most beautiful of all realms would burn. King Jared made a final stand in his palace, all as Sindel and the young Princess Katana prayed for the Elder Gods to save what was left of their people. Their prayers went unanswered, and Shao Kahn crushed Jared underfoot. In desperation, Sindel attacked the Conqueror to protect her daughter, but to no avail. She fought out of fear that Kahn would murder her and her daughter. She would come to realize that Shao Kahn would never be so merciful. Kahn had become a master of soul manipulation, so great that he could implant, alter, or even destroy memories. Queen Sindel and Princess Katana were certainly of stronger will than most, but even they would be shattered by his endless torture. In time, Jared would be forgotten. Edenia would be forgotten. In the minds of Sindel and Katana, Shao Kahn had always been their king, their blood, their god. As the millennia passed, Katana would grow from a little girl to a proud warrior, greatest of all Shao Kahn's assassins. As her power and prowess grew, so did Shao Kahn's fear of her. For men like Kahn, only absolute control could satisfy their desire. But absolute control is an unnatural thing. His eternal machinations to keep Katana unaware of her true father, her true home, would crack eventually, as all illusions do. Were Katana to grow disloyal, she was always near the Emperor. Poison, backstabbing, outright challenges to his throne. She could at any time jeopardize his rule, and right as he was closing in on Earthrealm, he would not be denied his manifest destiny, especially not by a bastard princess. However, Kahn was no fool. When she was loyal, Katana was a perfect soldier. Most of Kahn's army were weak, old, idiotic, or some horrible combination of the three. Katana stood amongst Motaro and Goro as his most competent underlings. She still served a purpose. More importantly, her current fealty allowed Kahn to prepare her replacement. The Earthrealm sorcerer Shang Tsung had been pursuing the Emperor's favor for as long as he'd been in Kahn's royal court. Though Tsung had disappointed Kahn in the past, it was undeniable that the old man possessed skill in his craft, and more importantly, knew how to lie. Several years before the 10th Earthrealm Mortal Kombat tournament, Kahn set Shang Tsung to work in the Flesh Pits. Using a combination of Katana's genetic material, Tsung's terrible magic, and the cadavers of the most powerful Tartakan gladiators, Kahn soon had his preferred daughter. Vicious, powerful, loyal. He named his abomination Mileena. Just as he had done before, Kahn's control of souls allowed him to implant memories within Katana's head, making her believe that Mileena hadn't only always been in the family, but was her identical twin sister. The only potential issue with this was Mileena's jaw, as it had taken the form of a Tartakan's. Thankfully, Kahn could always trust Katana's inherent kindness to be an exploitable weakness. He made Katana believe that Mileena envied her sister's beauty and thus always hid her face from the world. Katana would believe this at first, covering Kahn's treachery. Ironically, Mileena actually would come to envy her sister, partially due to Kahn's orders to place her full attention on watching over Katana and reporting her actions to him constantly. In time, it would actually be Mileena that caused the first seeds of doubt for Katana. Not her sister's creation, no, but rather the fact that Mileena wasn't present in any of the family's portraits or statues. It didn't help that Mileena would follow her everywhere. Instead of Mileena making Kahn more aware of Katana's comings and goings, she instead made Katana more elusive. Mileena wasn't even aware that Katana had left the palace the night the princess discovered Argus's pyramids. In the ruins of Argus's gifts to the royal family, she was only met with questions. There was a pyramid to her dead mother, Queen Sindel, one for her as Princess Katana, yet neither Mileena nor Shao Kahn had a pyramid. Only one remained, and was dedicated to a man named Jared. Kahn had created Mileena to replace Katana, yet all he had truly done was make Katana take the first steps to ending his empire. As the years passed, Mileena was having more and more issues with tracking Katana. She would report to Kahn that the princess would hardly leave her chambers, and all evidence she could gather would corroborate that, yet it made no sense. Surely there must be something Katana was hiding, and Mileena would be greatly rewarded when she discovered it. Perhaps Katana had grown overconfident. Maybe it was excitement or destiny itself. No matter what had caused it, Mileena's first time catching the princess leaving the castle was the first night the Earthrealmers had come to Outworld. Mileena trailed her perfectly, never alerting her sister as they traveled. Her mind raced as to what treachery Katana could be committing. Even in her wildest dreams, she would have never expected Kitana to have been in contact with one of the Earthrealmers. No, not just an Earthrealmer, the one who had prevented Shao Kahn's invasion, the Slayer of Goro, the one called Liu Kang. This betrayal was all Mileena needed to know it was time to take her rightful place as Kitana's replacement. As Kitana left her meeting, Mileena struck, intending to rip Kitana's flesh and take her head as a trophy for Shao Kahn. Mileena was powerful. Mileena was vicious. Mileena was loyal. But she was no match for Kitana. When Kitana defeated her, Mileena still planned on reporting the traitor to her father, only to be cut short when Kitana slit her throat. Kitana was kind at heart, but not a fool. Any love Kitana may have had for Mileena, genuine or artificial, drained away as Mileena's blood poured from her neck. As her supposed twin lay dying, Kitana removed Mileena's mask to discover her fangs. In death, all Mileena succeeded at doing was shattering Shao Kahn's lies. No peace awaited Mileena. As things grew dark, there was no sister by her side, no father to carry her body. She was born in the flesh pits, and her flesh would now fertilize these swamps. Mileena's restless soul was saved from oblivion by the fallen elder god Shinnok. Using his eldritch powers, Shinnok recreated Mileena's body, making her more powerful than she had ever been in life. Shinnok used Mileena's shared blood with Kitana to create a mental link between the pair, before ordering Mileena to spy on her sister. Shinnok planned for his second coming, and the princess would prove an obstacle. With Mileena loyal to him, Shinnok would now expose Shao Kahn to the same mental manipulation that Kahn himself so often utilized. Kahn was given memories of finding Mileena in the swamps, of restoring her to life using his own power. As Shinnok whispered into the Conqueror's ear, Kahn was given the idea to keep Mileena hidden. Have her track Kitana, yes, but never engage her. From the shadows, Mileena watched and listened. Kitana was now defending Earthrealm alongside Liu Kang. The complete betrayal of their father sickened Mileena, though she never realized the hypocrisy of that given her own ongoing betrayal of Shao Kahn. When Liu Kang killed her former master, Mileena returned to the Netherrealm to await Shinnok's final command. It was only now that Mileena found out that Shao Kahn had a shadow of his own, Shinnok's other agent, Noob Saibot. With Shao Kahn dead, Edenia was freed. Its former glory shone once more, all with Kitana, now queen of this realm, leading her people to a better day. It disgusted Mileena. She didn't recognize this land anymore, and was more than happy to act as Shinnok's agent during his invasion. Though Kitana was fearless, she was no match for an elder god. Shinnok defeated the queen before imprisoning her within the palace, intending to execute her in front of her people. Mileena could not abide that. Kitana's death was hers to bring about. Wanting to ensure her personal vengeance, Mileena freed Kitana from the dungeons. The clone was convinced that she'd now be able to hunt Kitana down and kill the queen herself. Instead, Kitana was able to make contact with Earthrealm. Her allies rallied before invading Edenia as liberators. Kitana herself would corner Mileena during her attempted retreat. In spite of all the power Shinnok gave her, Mileena still proved to be far lesser in combat than Kitana. The queen beat her once more, before placing Mileena in the same dungeon she had freed Kitana from. For the next several years, Kitana would try to find any good within Mileena. For the next several years, Kitana would be disappointed. As Mileena remained in the dungeon, her need for revenge only intensified. Hidden away inside the dungeons, Mileena was initially unaware that Edenia had been once again invaded. It wasn't until a dragon of a man found her that Mileena even realized that a new status quo was being cemented. Onaga, former king of Outworld and master of Shao Kahn, had been reawakened at long last. He intended to conquer Edenia outright, but instead made a proposal to Mileena. If she were to pose as Kitana, she'd be able to take the throne and act out Unaga's will, a bloodless conquest. one that would allow Onaga and Mileena to use Edenia's new army to attack Earthrealm. Mileena was more than happy to accept these terms. After all, she had been made to replace Kitana. As soon as the new conquest began, she already began plotting to betray the Dragon King and take Outworld for herself. Still posing as Kitana, Mileena ousted Onaga and had regained total control of the Edenian army. She personally led an invasion against Outworld. She lied to the Edenians, claiming that this war was to liberate the people of Outworld and put in place a new regime. The Edenians were skeptical, but Kitana had never led them astray before, so they marched, unaware that it was now Mileena's banner they marched under. The Edenians succeeded in taking Onaga's palace, killing his remaining loyalists and claiming the realm for themselves. At long last, Mileena had exactly what she wanted: revenge against Kitana, the thrones of Edenia and Outworld, and now she had finally matched her father's accomplishments. Mileena proved herself to be the true daughter of SHAO Kahn. In a twist of fate, it would be Kahn who would strip Mileena of these accolades. Having returned to life, he was joined by Shang Tsung and Goro in an assault on the palace. Mileena's deception had proven too effective. Kahn had intended to remain in hiding for a while longer, but now marched for revenge against Kitana, and as a way to show Outworld that Edenia would never take control of his realm. Mileena's lies had been meant to trick her soldiers, but now they were the catalyst of her own destruction. In terror, Mileena ordered her mages to form a barrier around the throne room, only for it to be shattered by SHAO Kahn. In a moment of brilliant self-preservation, Mileena killed her remaining guards and revealed her identity. She claimed that everything she had done was for the honor of SHAO Kahn, that she was a loyal servant wanting to keep his throne warm. Either Mileena had become an accomplished liar, or Kahn simply needed more followers. In any case, he accepted Mileena's story and reinstated her as his personal assassin. He immediately dispatched her to capture the warrior Shunjinko, a man Kahn would need as a peace offering to Onaga. Mileena succeeded with ease, yet this solitude gave her time to think. She now had a taste of being a conqueror in her own right, a master of her own destiny. She was, in theory, still next in line for Khan's throne, but that didn't matter much when she now knew what the throne felt like. Little did she know that her ultimate prize would reveal itself very soon. During a colossal fight between all the realms, a pyramid rose. Within it was the power Mileena craved. No matter how strong she became, Kitana and SHAO Kahn had always proven superior. But the power within these halls, no one could ever deny her again. She unfortunately struggled to even get to the top of the tower, being sucker punched by an Earthrealmer named Striker. She did eventually catch up to the others, intent on killing her creator Shang Tsung to secure her eternal reward, only to be thrown aside. Even in the end, Mileena never realized that she was never on the level of her rivals. Though we do not see it on screen, Mileena would die during Armageddon, alongside every combatant not named SHAO Kahn. However, Mileena, alongside everyone else, would wake up to a brand new world due to the final actions of Raiden. In the second timeline, many small changes would lead to major differences within the psychology of Mileena. Though much of Shao Kahn's conquest of Edenia remained the same, Mileena's creation came later. Specifically, instead of Shang Tsung bringing her to life well before the 10th Earthrealm Mortal Kombat, she was instead born directly before the Outworld-hosted Mortal Kombat. Alongside that, Kitana didn't become distrustful of Mileena due to her sneaking, but because she literally found the clone fresh off the slab. Though Mileena is physically about the same age as she was at this point in the original timeline, she was mentally far younger. This Mileena was far less conniving or subtle, instead being driven by raw emotion. There's also the fact that Kitana never once cared for this Mileena as a sister. Instead, she saw Mileena as an abomination the moment they met and proceeded to beat Mileena in their very first fight. Due to Kitana still being loyal to SHAO Kahn, she went to question her father over this betrayal, sparing Mileena of the death her predecessor suffered in the swamps. Once Kitana was ejected from KAHN'S royal court, Mileena was officially named as his true heir and the rightful princess of Outworld. Her first royal duty was to find the traitor Jade after a failed attempt to save Kitana from the dungeon. Jade defeated Mileena handedly, with the princess only being saved due to Smoke mistaking her for Kitana. Having narrowly escaped Jade, Mileena would stand alongside Shao Kahn as they observed the tournament, as well as Liu Kang seemingly killing the Conqueror in retribution. KAHN'S royal court scrambled. As many made their claim to the throne of Outworld, Baraka proudly proclaimed that Mileena was the true heir. This one act of loyalty would make Mileena come to see Baraka as her closest follower. However, she had no interest in the throne, at least not when Shao Kahn was revealed to have survived Liu Kang's attack. Mileena will lead Outworld forces during their invasion of Earthrealm, though was quickly subdued by LA SWAT team operative Curtis Stryker, making for one of the odder parallels between Mileena's past and current lives. As the invasion raged on, Kahn entrusted Mileena with forming diplomatic ties with the Lin Kuei, an Earthrealm ninja clan that had begun making themselves into cyborgs. This proved successful, as Sector, Grand Master of the Lin Kuei, soon found himself in KAHN'S court. Having served under Shinnok in a different life, Mileena and Noob Saibot once again found themselves working together as they defended Shao Kahn from an Earthrealmer named Kabal. The injuries Mileena suffered against Kabal must have been severe, as she would be absent from the remainder of the invasion. This would prove to be her salvation, as Shao Kahn, Sindel, Noob Saibot, and almost every other member of KAHN'S government died in combat, leaving no one left to challenge Mileena's claim to the throne. Mileena would ascend to the Empress of Outworld, and quickly proved herself to be far more tyrannical than her father. For all his brutality and sadism, Kahn was not a fool. He knew there was only so much you could break a people before even death could not deter them. Mileena failed to realize that lesson. Outworld had suffered cruel Khans and idiot Khans, but never a cruel idiot. When a challenger to her throne emerged, the fallen General Kotal, few allies stood with Mileena. Kotal was joined by Reptile and Devora in claiming that Mileena didn't even have a legitimate claim to the throne due to not having a drop of Shao Kahn's blood in her veins. Kotal offered Mileena amnesty if she were to step down from power, but Mileena refused. Her oldest ally, Baraka, rallied the Tatakan forces to attack Kotal. Kotal killed them all, before imprisoning Mileena. The only thing that spared Mileena from execution was a woman named Tanya. This would begin the single positive relationship Mileena would ever have, with Mileena actually feeling something akin to love for Tanya, as much love as something like Mileena could feel. Even if Tanya would often act against the failed Khan, she seemingly loved Mileena back in her own way, and would remain by Mileena's side as the fallen princess began a civil war against Kotal. For 5 years the civil war raged on, though Kotal forever proved the superior combatant, the superior strategist, the superior Khan. Mileena, having grown desperate, formed a Faustian bargain with Shinnok of this new timeline. Shinnok provided her with an amulet, one that would give her brief bursts of power, though Mileena would slowly die the more she utilized it. Wanting to spare herself the pain, Mileena, alongside Rain and Tanya, hired Kano in an attempt to ambush Kotal Khan and kill him. This attack would fail, just as all before had, though Mileena was able to use the amulet to hold Kotal back until Rain could recover and evacuate the pair. Unfortunately, Mileena would learn the hard way that you cannot buy a mercenary's loyalty. Kano revealed her location to Cassie Cage. For many months now, her remaining loyalists had been living in a dense foliage of the Kutan jungle. Mileena was found. Mileena was captured. Mileena was executed. In death, she was still not the true successor of Shao or the equal of Kotal, with the true Khan refusing to even dignify her by carrying out the execution himself. Instead, it would be Devora to end the former princess of Outworld. During the events of Mortal Kombat 11, a time-displaced Shao Kahn would be proud to hear that Mileena succeeded him as Emperor, only to be outraged upon hearing of her death. Though the Mileena of this second timeline seemingly never matched the accomplishments of her past life, she did, in a bizarre way, earn the love of her father. Due to Kronika's manipulation of the timeline, we do know of a different Mileena, one that succeeded in her war against Kotal. I want to play the audio of her arcade ending, as it does shed light on this Mileena's character.
With the hourglass won, my thoughts turned toward my sister. I was born from her flesh. We shared the same blood. I wanted us to be family. But she wanted me dead. I was not her twin. I was a monstrosity. How horrified she would be to know that I've used Kronika's power to take her place. Under my parents' adoring gaze, I ruled the realms as Khan'S of Time. My sister's friends, her lover, they cherish me. Kitana is forgotten, her name buried in the sands of history. Yet even I can't reign forever. Like all queens, I need an heir. Someone to carry on in my name and see my will done across the eons. Unlike my sister, my daughter regards me with awe and wonder. To her, I am no abomination. I am perfection.
The Mileena of the second timeline is, in many ways, a child. A child that was met with violence, and thus chose to react with violence. The only success this Mileena experienced was when she stepped away from violent options, either by establishing diplomatic ties with the Lin Kuei, or in her positive relationship with Tanya. In this one glimpse we have of a victorious Mileena, she isn't leading some conquest. She isn't feasting on the innocent. If Mileena had been granted godlike powers, she makes a life where she has caring parents, a happy marriage, supporting friends, and a child she loves with all her heart. In a previous life, Mileena was jealous of Kitana, jealous of Kitana's love, the fact that Kitana was respected and could escape the shadow of Shao Kahn. The same is true here. The more manic nature of this Mileena seemingly stems from her being rejected by her twin. It's worth noting that even if Mileena removed Kitana from the timeline, it's clear that she still had some attachment to her sister and wished that they had a better relationship. Really consider what this Mortal Kombat 11 ending says. A Mileena with absolute power, a Mileena that could do anything that could possibly pop into her head, and what she crafts is a happy home life. For all the monstrosity of Mileena, she has some of the most wholesome wants in life, wants that she's been denied due to her parentage, her features, and her own emotions. Perhaps in another life, Mileena would find this family she looked for. Fire God Liu Kang remade the universe in his image. He was hopeful and forgiving, and thus he forgave the unforgiven and bestowed hope upon the hopeless. In this new world, King Jared and Queen Sindel welcomed two little girls to the realm of Edenia. Princess Kitana, yes, but she would be born a few seconds after Princess Mileena, heiress to the throne of Edenia. Mileena was beloved by her kingdom, even if some would rather see Kitana take the throne due to Mileena's impulsiveness. In spite of that split reaction, within her family, Mileena was seen as the willful, headstrong older sibling, the one that would always be there for Kitana. As Mileena grew, she would become a student to Li Mei in the ways of combat. Li Mei was like a second mother to Mileena, up until the night King Jared was murdered. Mei resigned from her post in shame, causing what seemed like an unamendable rift with Mileena. The new head of the royal family's guard would be an Umgadi warrior named Tanya. Tanya would quickly become Mileena's closest friend and confidant. The pair were rarely seen in public without one another. Though everyone in the kingdom knew they were close, none could ever know that the two women had fallen in love. It was forbidden for Umgadi warriors to have romantic attachments, thus their relationship would have to remain secret. One of many secrets, unfortunately. In this new world, Tarkatans were not natives of Outworld. They were Edenians that had become disfigured by a disease that Mileena now had been exposed to due to her travels. The court's mage, Shang Tsung, had made a medication to hold Mileena's illness at bay. As a show of her absolute trust in Tanya, Mileena entrusted her with an emergency dosage of this drug. During the most recent Mortal Kombat tournament between Earthrealm and Outworld, now a friendly competition to promote peace between the realms, Princess Mileena looked forward to potentially competing against Fire God Liu Kang's champion, a farmer named Raiden. This would never come to pass. After the first day of the tournament, Mileena suddenly became ill. Her family feared that it had come as a result of her infection, and quickly removed Mileena from the tournament. If Mileena's illness ever became public knowledge, Queen Sindel would have been forced to banish her to the wastelands, just as she had done to all those who suffered the sickness. With Tanya and Raid at her side, Mileena was set to receive a more powerful treatment for her Taraket infection. She was excited by the possibility of a better medicine, unaware Shang Tsung had only been able to make it by forcefully extracting bone marrow from Baraka, a fellow patient. Earthrealm warriors stormed the lab under the belief that Shang Tsung was attempting to infect Mileena. They only discovered the truth when she awoke. In a disease-induced mania, Mileena attacked the Earthrealmers, gouging out the eyes of Kenshi before she could be subdued. Tanya was left to take care of the princess as she slipped into unconsciousness. Mileena recovered enough to host a banquet that night, though Katana was forced to step in when Mileena and Tanya became a touch too affectionate in public. The pressures of life were getting to Mileena. She was forced to suffer an illness in silence, to love in secret, and to live according to Edenian tradition. Every part of her life, down to the smallest detail, was regulated and rehearsed. As time passed, Sindel became distrustful of Liu Kang. She dispatched Tanya and the Umgadi to remove them from the realm, only for the soldiers to be stopped by a returning Li Mei. Mei had learned of a widespread conspiracy to incite war between the realms, and had returned to the royal house to save them. Sindel refused to see reason, leaving Li Mei with no choice but to defend herself from Katana and Tanya. Desperate to protect her mother, Mileena attacked her former mentor. In the midst of their fight, Mileena was overtaken by her sickness. Sindel tried to calm her daughter down, only to be attacked. Li Mei proved her loyalty by saving Sindel and providing Tanya with the opening to medicate Mileena. It was only due to Li Mei's warning that the royal family weren't caught totally unaware by General SHAO's betrayal, or his use of Shinnok's amulet to trap them. Liu Kang managed to save Mileena's family, something he would have never been able to do had Li Mei failed in her peace mission. Mileena would join Liu Kang's forces against Shang Tsung, though she and Tanya soon found themselves cornered by Ermac, a malicious gestalt of dead souls. They attempted to fight together, though Tanya would be injured. She insisted that Mileena leave her behind, but Mileena refused to leave the woman she loved to die. Knowing the risk, Mileena took a stand against this soul stealer. The heiress fought, but this time she was able to contain the illness that haunted her. She defeated Ermac to save her partner, and as if the universe itself wanted to reward this act of heroism, Ermac's body was taken over by Jared, her father. After a brief reunion, Mileena led the combined Outworld and Earthrealm forces against Shang Tsung, tricking the sorcerer with a false alliance before defeating him alongside Tanya. The victory was short-lived. The royal family came under attack by Dark Raiden and Dark Sindel. The evil version of the queen mortally wounded the true Sindel before mocking her daughters. With this, Mileena finally embraced the Tarkatans side of herself, tapping into the rage and power it provided while still retaining control of her mind. This newfound might enabled her to defeat the doppelgangers. Sindel died of her wounds, passing her crown down to Mileena before she herself passed. Ermac, still under the control of Jared, guided Sindel's soul to his own, ensuring the pair would be together forevermore. In the hours to come, Queen Mileena would lead the united armies against the Titan Shang Tsung, buying time for Liu Kang to find Kronika's hourglass to save this timeline. When the crisis ended, Mileena ascended to the throne. Her sister Kitana, forever at her side, became her general, while Li Mei was reinstated as a constable for the palace. As for Tanya, not only would she be made the head of the guard, but the pair could now be openly affectionate. With Mileena as the head of the family, it felt like all was right within the castle. However, Mileena's changes didn't stop within the palace. After forming a friendship with Baraka, Mileena personally led the efforts to aid the Tartakan colonies, providing them resources they desperately needed. As a way to disprove the negative stereotyping against the Tartakans, Mileena even revealed her own affliction to the public. She feared the potential blowback, but the people instead came to respect her for her transparency and the humanitarian efforts she was leading. Where the people once dreaded her rise to the throne, they now embraced it. With Tanya, Kitana, Jared, and Li Mei by her side, Mileena now stood ready to lead her people. Even if new crises would arise with Havoc, and Mileena's impulsiveness would still appear from time to time, this was the dawn of a new day. Mileena made mistakes, but she also learned from mistakes, and her family was there to keep her on the right path. As Mileena looked out over her beloved realm, she would sometimes gain visions of past lives. A version that hated her sister, another that would claim the throne only by taking Kitana's name, even one that was desperate to just be loved by a single other person. As she stood here, beloved by thousands, surrounded by her wife, her best friend, her teacher, and even being reunited with her father, Mileena could almost cry. After 1,000 lifetimes of misery, 1,000 horrible deaths, it was all worth it for this one happy life.